Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. The government shutdown has been dragging on since October 1st of last month. This has been a time where we've seen the market stagnate. A lot of the modern world is starting to panic with all of the shutdowns that are taking place inside of the airports with a lot of the workers. And as this is taking place, the market is pulling back. Today, I wanted to break down why I believe that we're moments away from the government shutdown ending, what it means for our charts for crypto, and how we can go about profiting off of this next move coming so that we're in the awareness and we know exactly what to expect moving forward. There's about to be a lot of money that is made by people that are willing to see the long term, and today I'm going to break down all of the data that you need to see to make sure that you're holding on the positive end of this trend. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you found any value in this video, please do me a favor, hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. Without further ado, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty, here we are jumping to today's video, starting out with Bitcoin. You guys already know that we've been inside of this government shutdown for now over 40 days, and it is projected that this is going to finally be coming to a close. If we come over to Polymarket is usually very accurate when it comes to predicting a lot of this stuff, and there's been a lot of talks, a lot of announcements that all of the Congress is coming together to basically vote on all of this and really try and pass something and get this through, get the government back open. And as this is happening, I think that we're getting very close to the point where we're finally going to be at the resolution of all of this. As of right now, there is currently projections for the November 8th to 11th, less than 1%. Most likely, by the end of the day, we're not going to have the finalization of that shutdown. November 12th to 15th, we're currently projected at a 96% chance that we're going to have the resolution of this shutdown somewhere in the next 3 or 4 days about. Now, 16 plus, November after the 16th, it's only a 4% chance. So as of right now, the whole market is speculating that sometime in the next 3 or 4 days, we are going to finally get the resolution of all of this shutdown. And what I am anticipating, if we do actually get that government opening back up again, everything starts back up like normal, at that point, I think it's important that we're looking at how the chart has actually reacted. If we come over here, the day that the government shutdown actually took place was October the 1st. So if we come over and take a look at October the 1st, it's going to be right over in here. We can see that the day that the shutdown actually happened, we saw a green candle, and we kind of saw a rally right back up into the range highs, and we technically made a new all-time high. So this kind of trapped a lot of people off guard. Most people are anticipating that we were going to see a bullish government shutdown, mainly because the last time we saw a government shutdown was all the way back over in here. And it was at the very bottom of the 2018 bear market. It was pretty much right at the very low, around $3,400. And we saw that the government shut down, and when that happened, Bitcoin went on a massive run shortly after. So most people were anticipating that this government shutdown was actually going to be bullish. We can notice that that was actually a shifting point in our cycle top. Now guys, when the government shut down, all of this new liquidity that the Fed is constantly injecting into the market, and then the government's actually kind of allocating about, all of that money just sits stagnated. And so it's not getting injected into the government, it's not getting injected into the economy, it's not going anywhere. It's literally just stagnant liquidity. And that's a really bearish situation, because anytime you have these government shutdowns, all of the new liquidity that should be coming into the market is no longer entering. It's pretty much just stagnant, sitting inside of these different asset classes that aren't going anywhere. And so because of that, we generally are going to see the Bitcoin market go down anytime there's contraction inside of the liquidity. I think that that's ultimately what is taking place around this government shutdown. And then another thing that you have to keep aware of is the fact that a lot of this is fear-based sentiment around all of the air traffic controllers, around all of the TSA agents, around anybody that works in airlines. They're all at the risk of losing their jobs, and many of them have already began strike, they've already stepped out. And so this is all kind of cascading into this fear-based correction inside of Bitcoin. We had the government shutdown. That means lesser liquidity is going to be coming into the market. And then as that is all happening, we're also seeing many of the airlines are starting to fall apart. So there's kind of a drag that is taking place inside of our market. Now, in the short time frames, remember guys, when we're looking over here, it's basically predicted that November 14th has a 95% chance that this is when we're going to finally end this shutdown. So if we're talking within the next 3-4 days approximately that we're going to see this shutdown end, then I think it's likely that we look at the Bitcoin chart and notice how kind of the shifting point for the top of this move was when the shutdown started. And I'm not going to be the least bit surprised if the shifting point for the bottom of this move is when the shutdown ends. We have that new liquidity come in, the airlines open back up, all of those kind of fears are basically squashed. and at that point the market can proceed to go back up again. Because when I'm looking at this market for Bitcoin, so far we've yet to break anything that we needed to. When we're looking at our main trending indicators, we've held everything. We closed above the 50-week. We still have 5.5 days left to go before the secondary candle closes, so we'll keep our eyes on what that happens. But for the most part, guys, I think that a lot of this fear and a lot of this sell-off was mainly just revolving around the government shutdown. And I think that as we get closer towards the ending of that shutdown, we should expect to see some type of a reversal. And to be honest, guys, if we don't see a strong reversal after the shutdown ends and we start to see the candle bodies close bearish, actually below this moving average, at that point we can very easily be looking at the ending of this bull market. But as it stands, I'm kind of anticipating that this is just going to be one of those short-term fear-based moves where the market drags lower. Once all of that negative news or whatever it was that was driving the price comes out and it's no longer there, aka the government shutdown, I honestly think that this market is going to reverse off of this level and go for one more move. But that's really all we're watching for here with Bitcoin. Like I said, we're at about a 95% chance that within the next few days we're going to see the resolution of this. Because this was the topping point of our chart, I'm not going to be surprised if this is also the bottoming portion of this chart as well, before we start that next new all-time high and probably the ending of this bull market cycle before we start that next bear market lower. Really, guys, if we're going to see a blow off top, it's going to look something like this. I'm not anticipating that we're just going to keep kind of making this consistent uptrend along the way. I think that if we're going to see a blow off top, it needs to kind of happen out of this V bottom. It needs to happen really quickly because we're so late inside of the 4-year cycle timeframes. It doesn't make sense to me that we're just going to chop around here and spend the next couple months just kind of going sideways. I think that if we were to go sideways, we're really just going to be breaking down from this main trend line or the 50-week moving average. And if we break down from that, you guys know I'm anticipating a pretty decent sized drop back down. But that's really the way that I think we can play this market moving forward with Bitcoin. It's very straightforward. We've had so much negative news, so much negative stimulus around this government shutdown. And so now that it's projected that it's going to be ending this week after we just got that weekly close back above this same 50-week moving average, I think that there is a lot of fear in the market and a lot of people are, kind of freaked out, wondering what they should do. Should they take cash, wait in the cash, just wait for the resolution of all of this, whether the shutdown ends or whether it keeps going? A lot of people are kind of worried. They don't want to lose any more of their portfolio if we see another downside move. But guys, that's why I'm really just watching this 50-week. If we have the candle close above like we saw, that's the first thing that we needed to see for bullish continuation. Now that we have that, and it's projected that sometime this week we will have kind of the ending of this shutdown, don't be surprised if this secondary candle on the weekly closes bullish. And if that's the case, we should be looking at a pretty quick buyback up, at least back up to the range highs. But in my guess, like I said, if we're going to see a V bottom, we'll probably end up running into a new all-time high as well. So that's what we're watching here with Bitcoin. Big week, lots of stuff to update you guys on. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is actually going to be the Bitcoin dominance, because I think that this is a really important time to be talking about this chart specifically, considering if we're going to see altcoins run, it's going to revolve around this chart breaking down. We're right there at the very ending. We're at the end of the 4-year cycle. Bitcoin's on the 50-week. We're talks about getting the government shutdown ended this week. So there is a decent amount that could push the market higher. And if we see Bitcoin bottom and reverse out of here, I want to talk a little bit about what that can look like on this chart. Now, right off the bat, guys, we're on a weekly time frame for the Bitcoin dominance. And we've been inside of this uptrend since basically June of 2023, when we first made our higher high above this resistance level at 47%. We made that higher high, and we've been maintaining higher highs and higher lows the entire way up. Now, the only thing that really shifted along this trend was actually when we just recently broke back down below from these highs at 65, 66%. We had been maintaining higher highs and higher lows. We had had this big bearish divergence pretty much since the beginning of the breakout, and we were really watching for when this thing was finally going to roll over. And we ended up finally seeing it roll over at about 66, 65%. And we came all the way back down, but the big thing that happened that got me excited was the fact that we broke from our main trend line that we had kind of been holding. We retested it over in here in November of 2024, right before we saw kind of that peak move inside of Bitcoin dominance, and we ended up coming back down to that level and actually breaking below it. So this was an encouraging sign for altcoin holders. After we ended up getting that, we got this retest. Notice how we saw this great big wick to the upside? That's generally going to be a bearish type of situation where the wick comes up, it retests some of these prior resistance levels, and it's unable to actually get back above. And we can see that we have a couple wicks in here. We saw this wick here, we saw this wick over here. So we have two different reactions here inside of this chart, showing that the market has the potential of actually rolling over. So if we're going to see a blow off top in Bitcoin, chances are altcoins are going to lead that run. And if we're going to see altcoins lead the run, then we have to see Bitcoin dominance continue to roll over right here. If we see Bitcoin dominance continue to reject down here, unable to actually reclaim this prior level, keep in mind we can still go back up here. I wouldn't even be surprised if Bitcoin dominance climbed all the way back up near the top of this wick. But even if we climb, we don't want to recapture this trend line because that presents a potential where we could have one more final kind of peak move in Bitcoin dominance. And it would look similar to the last cycle. Remember in the last cycle how we had made this downtrend, altcoins were starting to outperform, and then when Bitcoin ran into a new all-time high, it went from 57% dominance all the way up to 73%. This was all in one big move where Bitcoin went into a new all-time high and altcoins stayed pretty much the same price, didn't move anywhere. And that was where Bitcoin dominance recaptured a lot of this value. So in this cycle, I wouldn't be surprised to see something similar, right? We already saw the breakdown, but we kind of already saw that happen over in this period as well. Now, if we were to see one more final move in Bitcoin dominance, I think it does look a bit like this. We're either going to continue to roll over and reject underneath this trend line, or it would be something like this, where it's really just a quick impulse like that before it breaks down and starts that next bear market lower. This is what we have to see for altcoins. Really, that's the only thing that we need to see for altcoins to go up is once Bitcoin dominance rolls over, considering we're looking at a pretty bearish setup right here. This looks like more of a head and shoulder type top. This right shoulder looks like it broke the main trend line that we were holding. It's also looking like it's rejecting underneath the resistance of that trend line inside of the same right shoulder. We look at all of this volume that's in the right shoulder. That can be an encouraging sign. It could also be a sign that this is just going to recapture and go up. So I don't really consider that a really valid sign one way or another. But generally speaking, inside of a head and shoulder top, because the right shoulder is the shoulder that breaks down and actually falls lower, when you see inclining volume in the right shoulder, that's actually what you want to see. So as far as a chart pattern goes, as far as seeing Bitcoin follow through with this, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that. If we jump into the shorter time frames, we're still just pretty much right in the same moment. You know, we are kind of still rallying up ever since we started to see that big liquidation event. Once October 1st started and we started to see that dip, the government shutdown, that's really where Bitcoin dominance started to climb back up. But even in these peaks that we've had, they've instantly reverted back down. And we've seen certain altcoins rally. Zcash pumped over 10x. You know, ICP, that's another one that went up a lot. Internet Computer. There's been a few altcoins that have actually broken out, even as Bitcoin is starting to find this bottom. So there is encouraging signs at the very least. Having altcoins rally as Bitcoin's finding a bottom generally is a bullish sign, because altcoins aren't going to rally if it's a dead cat bounce before Bitcoin goes lower. Generally, they're just going to make small little moves up, and then they're going to keep going lower. But having actual altcoin charts breaking out, making big moves, and that's a really encouraging sign for, you know, that Bitcoin dominance finally has actually topped, because we're seeing this happen at the moment where Bitcoin dominance finally broke from that main trend line. We broke from it, we've rejected once, we've rejected twice, and we're even starting to see further downside continuation from those rejections. So if we're going to continue to see that, I think that having these early signals of these altcoins breaking out, it does at least give us some encouraging signs to look forward to. You know, we're going to see how this government shutdown truly ends, whether it's going to be this week like it's speculated to be. If we do get that government shutdown ending, I'm not going to be the least bit surprised to see a nice green candle close on this secondary weekly. We still have the whole rest of this week to go, but you guys got to keep in mind that if we do get a resolution sometime maybe tomorrow or the next day, that final week of that candle will probably end up seeing a nice buyback. So if we get two green candle closes above the 50-week back-to-back, I think that that does present the likelihood scenario that the bottom is in, and we should see that next climb back up to these range highs being 125K. You know, at the very least, I think we're going to head back to there. You know, if we're going to be having some type of double top, then it would probably play out off of that level rather than getting that final blow off top. But that's really the way that I'm playing the market, guys. It's very straightforward. I'll keep you guys updated. Wanted to go through some of our important charts here between Bitcoin dominance. It's looking a little weak, which is a good sign. Having the government shutdown ending, I wouldn't be surprised to see this continue to roll over if we see a little bit more action in the altcoins. Zcash, ICP, You know, some of these other altcoins, Trump coin broke out. There is altcoins breaking out in the bottom of this correction, which is always what you want to see for continuation. So I'll keep you guys updated and I'll see what we get the rest of this week. But make sure you guys are just aware that, you know, the government shutdown could be ending, and it's better to wait for the ending of that, because if we're going to see kind of a run after, it's probably going to happen really quickly. So you don't want to jump into cash before all of that takes place and then have to jump in and buy at a higher price. So anyways, guys, if you found value in this video, please do me a favor, hit the like, comment, and subscribe button. If you want to see anything on buying, selling, trading over the cycle, links are in the description to sign up for my VIP group. With that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.